So I think there's a way out of this. Almost all progressive economists agree that this is not actually, this is a terrible time to be focusing on deficit reduction. You know, it's going to stall a recovery. It's going to send us back into recession. This makes absolutely no sense. An economist that I work with at the University of Massachusetts was saying a couple weeks ago that just pulling us out of the recession will by itself cut the deficit about in half, because when people are employed, they pay taxes, and those taxes go into the Treasury. And so we shouldn't be focusing now on cutting the deficit. We do need a long-term plan to do that, but it is something that really needs to be deferred until we're out of the recession. And it needs to emphasize things like cutting taxes on the rich, increasing corporate taxes, and protecting the safety net. And it needs to focus on investing to create jobs, to increase those tax revenues, to reduce the deficit, and to create the jobs of the future. So a couple of the members of the commission did put out, I think, progressive proposals along those lines. One was Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky of Illinois. You can look up her plan. You can just Google it. Andy Stern, who was the former president of the SEIU, was also a member of the commission, and his proposal is very similar. And both of their they simply adopt our proposal for military cuts. Now, it seems to me we can do those cuts in military spending right away. They're sort of the exception to the rule. War spending is draining the Treasury. It's not doing anything to contribute to the productivity of the economy as a whole, as investing in clean energy, in infrastructure, will do. And so it seems to me that we can responsibly make those cuts right away. Now, the argument that will be made against this is, of course, the jobs argument. If you spend $700 billion, you are going to create some jobs. I call this the military contractors' political protection racket. They basically spread out contracts in in all the key districts, but also in every state. Most of the big weapon systems are made in about 45 of the 50 states. So, protecting, creating the political, that's what I want. There you go. To keep spending on these weapon systems that we don't need. We do have an answer to that. Looking back at your Maryland's facts sheet on the back, right in the middle, impact of $1 billion on potential job creation in selected sectors. This is a study that we commissioned these same economists at the University of Massachusetts to do. We asked them to compute, if you invest $1 billion in the military, how many jobs are created as compared to these other forms of investment. And as you see, the military comes out the worst. It's even worse as a job creator than tax cuts. And it's much worse than investing in clean energy, healthcare, or education. And they did a subsequent study that showed that these are, this is not just because military jobs are better paid, that these jobs that are created in clean energy, healthcare, and education are well-paying, middle-class jobs. So obviously, yeah.
What is it? Induced job.
Yes, okay. So, for the military, a so-called direct job is a job that's directly funded by a contract. An indirect job is all of the suppliers that are added in to support that contract. And then an induced job is sort of like you have if you put a military contractor in a certain neighborhood, in addition to creating jobs for the people who are going to work there, you also have the sub shops and the dry cleaners and all the other economic activity that's created by having that factory there. So that's what that's about. I think we need to know, we know where we need to go, and the question is how to get there, and I think the answer is doing just what you're doing, building broader coalitions, bringing together all the affected constituencies that are impacted by this extremely poorly allocated discretionary budget. People like me have been talking about this for years, making the argument that that bloated military spending is an issue for environmentalists, educators, human needs advocates, labor, and so on. But, you know, it is kind of a perverse effect, but I think this budget cutting mania is helping this to happen. And as Jean mentioned, the public is really is behind it, is in favor of shifting these budget priorities. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago. Celinda Lake, who's a Democratic pollster, but she pulls together polls from, you know, nonpartisan, across the spectrum polling organizations, and then she kind of amalgamates them. And she says that by a factor of about 77% is the average of these polls. You know, the majority of the public wants to cut taxes on the rich and cut military spending before it wants to cut increase. What did I say? What did I say? The opposite. Yes. Yeah, tax the rich. I was just telling
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're awake.
So parenthetically, I was on a radio program a couple weeks ago, and it was clearly some Tea Partier who called in and said, "Don't we need a constitutional convention?" You know, and I thought, no. And I said, no. If you don't like your legislators' priorities, you just need to organize to elect somebody whose priorities you do like. So I'm really excited to see all you here, and I'm going to be excited to you know, kind of brainstorm and strategize about how we can get this done.